In this video, we're going to use the offset bone tool to put our character back together. Now, as you may recall, we did duplicate the Orville layer. So if I go ahead and I click on this eye icon, it brings back our original character. You can either use this or the tracing image that you have of this character, whichever is best for you. I'm going to go ahead and use the duplicate layer as a reference, and I'm going to drag all these bones back. So we're going to use the offset bone tool, which is this icon right here. Now, in order to use this tool, what we're going to do is we're going to select the parent of each one of these layers. So for the arm, it's going to be the top of the shoulder. For the head, it's just the head itself. For the legs, it's the thigh. And we're going to drag these back using that tool. So I'm just going to zoom in here just a little bit. And with that bone now selected, I'm just going to hold down Shift to constrain horizontally. And I'm going to drag that back over where the original arm is. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side on that other arm. Coming down here to the leg, I'm going to go ahead and drag that leg back to where it was originally. If you do need to match something up directly, you can zoom in and use Control and the left key and the right key on the keyboard. Or if you want to move it by 5 pixels, you can hit Control Shift. I'm going to take the other leg and I'm going to move that back over. And last, I'm going to grab the head and move that down. Okay, then I'm just going to go ahead and hide the other layer. And as I toggle that, you can see that pretty much everything is the same. Once you have everything lined up, you can go ahead and delete the duplicate layer. Okay, so now something interesting that you'll notice is when you hit T on the keyboard, everything goes back to its original state. But when I hit Z on the keyboard or my Manipulate Bones tool, it's going to bring everything back together that we just moved. Now you can make any changes to this at any time as far as the movement of any of these bones. The last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to hit S on the keyboard and I'm going to go in and I'm going to remove the bone strength from the different parts of the body that does not need it. So let's start with the head. The head was the layer binding method. So I'm just going to go ahead and click and I'm going to select the bone strength and enter 0. You can do the same thing by dragging to the left, but sometimes just know that there might be a little bit of bone strength left over, even though you can't see it. So just make sure you watch this number here or just enter the number 0. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here to the legs. I'm just going to select all the legs. When I hit B on the keyboard for the select bone tool, it separates everything out. And so I'm just going to click all of those holding down Shift, hit S on the keyboard. It's going to bring everything together. And I'm going to go ahead and enter a value of 0. Then I'm going to hit Escape to deselect. And now this is the last part. This is where I just test things just to see how everything is working. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with the arm. One thing that I'm going to do is we had the paths on. I'm going to go ahead and remove the paths from that arm. So if I come here to the front arm, I'm just going to right click and hit Quick Settings. And then here in the detail section, I'm just going to uncheck paths and hit Apply. And I'm going to go back to the bone layer and I'm just going to move the arms out just to see how they're bending. And the arms look pretty good. Let's move the head and see how the head is bending. Okay, so the head looks pretty good. You can see what I mentioned before, that with corners, it's always good to have smooth parts, but sometimes it's harder to avoid it. So what we can do is we can move this bone, because remember, this is going off of the pivot point. So when I rotate this head looks okay, but you can see that there's a sharp corner right there. And notice the positioning of this bone compared to the next bone before it. Where this bone is currently rotating, this does affect the head movement and also where the body shows. So as you can probably guess, the neck shouldn't be all the way down there. So let's go ahead and let's move it up to right about there to around those lines. So now when I rotate this, you can see that looks a little bit better. It's not quite there yet because we still have a little bit of that corner there. Let's just go ahead and move that bone up just a little bit and over to the left just a little bit. Okay, there, that looks a lot better. And the rest of this part right here can be fixed using a smart bone. This is very easy to fix. Just know that as far as your neck doesn't really have that wide range of emotion. So also keep that in mind with your animations. They don't have to bend all the way down and all the way back. And the last thing that we're going to test here is just the legs, just to make sure that the legs are moving properly. And they are. And you can see because we have the point binding that those legs, they're getting very, very skinny and there's nothing that we can control there. So we're also going to make changes to that using the powerful feature of Moho called Smart Bones. And that is it for this video. We just moved everything back with the offset bone tool, fixed our bone strength, looked at the rest of this rig to see if everything is moving perfectly. Now we move on to the next video to go over Smart Bones. I'll see you there. Want to learn more in depth everything there is to know about the rigging tools in Moho, what they are, and how to use them? Then be sure to check out the complete rigging course to know exactly how to rig your character step by step. Want to take the course? Use promo code RIGGING2019 and get the course 50% off. Link is in the description.